jump in motocross news.
Hello everyone, welcome to another GateDrop.com podcast. I'm Jonathan McCready. Joining me is Andy McKinstry, and we're going to look back on the Riola MXGP. Andy, that was a very significant GP, I feel. There was a lot of injuries on one hand and recovery on the other with Jeffrey Hurlings. Tim Geiger came in injured with a broken collarbone, we believe, so he was subpar, but my goodness, he gritted his teeth to get some fantastic points that could be very useful at the end of the championship. Then we had Tony Caroli getting injured, although thankfully it's not too bad. It looks like he has no broken bones, but he was out for the day at his home Grand Prix just after announcing his retirement, so that was pretty awful to see. Although somehow we'll get to this later, but he's still only 45 points back. And then we have Jeffrey Hurlings, the guy who was injured, is no longer injured and is making his way back and now has the red plate. So it was quite a frantic day.
Oh, it's just been like the whole season, really. You just don't know what's around the corner this year in this MXGP championship chase, but unbelievable. It has you at the edge of your seat anyway. And Riola, what a track. Unreal. Very, very good. Yeah,
the track was fantastic. It's a wee bit like Lommel in terms of the bumps and the rough nature, but a few more elevation changes, up hills and downhills, and maybe a wee bit tighter. But the depth of some of this, I think that final turn was maybe one of the deeper sections. Yeah. And if you made a mistake there, then you lost your momentum up through the jump, and guys were getting cross-rutted. But saw what happened to Caroli, and he spent winters training around there. So anyone can obviously make a mistake, and it was just a shame for Tony that that mistake was so costly. For a while, I was quite worried that it was going to be a serious injury, and he actually admitted he did lose some feeling very temporarily. So thankfully, all that worked out okay. He just lost points, but it was quite hard to see because it looked like with Geiger's injury, Tony was going to be right back into this championship hunt. And yes, he's 45 back, which it could have been worse. But still, it was sort of sad to see what happened to him.
Absolutely, it is sad to see, especially with him announcing earlier in the week there that this is his last season, and then for that to happen, the next GP is pretty devastating. But, you know, we'll have to look in the positives here. It could have been a hell of a lot worse. At least he's going to be back, you would think, possibly in Germany by the sound of it. But it wouldn't surprise me if he misses the Motocross the Nations now to focus on the MXGP season. And that would obviously give him a week's rest, a week off, and hopefully it'd be at Germany. Fingers crossed. But yeah, it could have been a lot worse. Thankfully, nothing broken, and we'll hopefully get to see him finish this championship. But yeah, it just goes to show you can't predict what's going to happen this year, that's for sure. Who would have thought that Jeffrey Hurlings would have the red plate after everything that's happened? He'd have it already. Mental.
Yeah, you literally couldn't predict it, as you say, especially with the Caroli and Geiger situation all happening. Now, coming into the weekend, we heard through sources that Geiger had broken his collarbone. But what fascinated me was Honda were very quiet about it, and even in the post-race press release that we were given, they then mentioned he had an injury, which they hadn't previously, but they didn't specify what the injury was, even though by this point everyone knew he was injured. Jeffrey Hurlings mentioned he was injured, and you could see, obviously, with the speed and the results that Tim wasn't at 100%. So that whole thing kind of baffled me slightly. What about you?
Yeah, I never understand why teams hide these injuries. I can sort of understand if it's a wee small injury and it's not going to affect him that much, but the dude broke his collarbone, needed an operation, and had a day on the bike before. You know, it's a good excuse. You know, it's a legit injury, so it's strange to me why teams hide this. But yeah, that's their decision, and that's what they're stuck with. So. But yeah, at least they said after it that he was injured. Still quite weird that they didn't say what the injury was. But anybody that loves motocross and knows anything about the sport will know exactly what's going on there.
And on to his riding, he was 18th in qualifying. He had a moment on a jump that looked like I don't know whether he got cross-rutted, then he didn't have the strength to correct it, and he came in after and he kind of put his head in the bars. And that told you right there and then that he wasn't going to be able to just knock this pain out of the road and ride to his potential. He was struggling. On first moto went down, and then he went down again. He was coming from last twice, pretty much. And at one point I thought there's no way he's getting points. He might actually be better just pulling in and saving his shoulder for the second race to keep some energy, because it certainly wasn't a track you wanted to ride with a freshly broken collarbone. I presume he had it plated or some metal put into it, but even so, those bumps and that heat weren't really the best track to be trying to ride a few days after that. But he kept plugging away, and this is one thing about Tim Geiser and probably all these guys, especially the ones going for the championship. They're so singularly focused that whatever, if it's possible for them to ride through, they're going to give everything to ride through. And Tim didn't pull off. A couple of guys crashed. He seemed to find his rhythm a bit more towards the end of the race, and he got 2 points, which it's only 2 points, but you don't know how this championship's going to come down in the end. And it maybe actually gave him a bit more confidence once he got that rhythm. But the funniest part of that moto was maybe Hurlings on the last lap giving an extra push to pass Geiser, a wounded Geiser, because Jeffrey knew this championship was getting close and he didn't want Tim picking any more riders off on what would have been Tim's last lap. So Tim never got that chance. Jeffrey passed him in pretty much the last turn to say, yeah, I'm not going to give you any sympathy on track. Now, he did give him sympathy off the track, but whenever it was on track, Jeffrey upped the pace in that last lap to get him, which I thought was pretty funny.
Yeah, it was quite funny, that wasn't it? But yeah, as you say, he plugged away and it looked like he was not going to get points, and he probably shouldn't have got points. But I think Sterry binned it and somebody else binned it, which promoted him 2 spots to get him 2 key championship points. So in the end, he did get a wee bit lucky, but it was worth him riding round to get those 2 points, because as it is, he's only a point off Hurlings now. So all to play for in terms of championship. And of course, Geiser with the Motocross the Nations on, he's not racing. He will have a week off now. So hopefully in Germany, he won't have so much pain and he can be near his best, and we could see a hell of a showdown in that hardpack track.
Yeah, and the second moto was really, really impressive. Started around just outside the top 10, around 12th or so, and pulled through late in the race. He looked like he found a good rhythm, catching good guys, Sean Simpson included, Brian Bogers, up to 8th, 9th. And
8th, yeah.
For under his condition, and as I said, that was the second moto. He had rode hard from miles back in the first moto. So really, really impressive by Tim Geiser. I'm not sure what he was expecting coming in, but I'm not sure I'd expect him to get a top 10, especially with how practice went and even that first moto.
Yeah, the second moto was when he impressed me the most. You know, he dug very, very deep there, in a lot of pain, a lot of discomfort. You could tell just by the way he was riding. He wasn't enjoying that track at its roughest for sure, but he dug deep and did what all great champions do, really, found a way, and to end up 12th overall. Those are key championship points, and even though Hurlings has the red plate now, it's still only a point in it, and unbelievably there's 4 riders separated by 11 points, is it? So that's
12,
pretty unbelievable. Yeah, 12 points. That's pretty unbelievable in this championship chase. Obviously, you never like to see anybody getting hurt or anything like that, but in terms of the championship, it needed something like this to happen, and now it's wide open, really. You can't rule any of the top 4 out, and if Tony Crowley comes back and clicks a few 1-1s off, difficult to do, but if he did manage to do it, then he could be right back in it as well. Exciting stuff.
Well, yeah, Crowley just needs a pretty bad moto, one pretty bad moto from all the other contenders, and he's going to be within 25 points roughly. 45 points, obviously you get 50 points potentially on a day if you win both motos. So there's still 5 guys within a Grand Prix event of this World Championship, despite everything that's happened, despite Crowley. I think Crowley's now, he's DNF 3 motos, or did not start, 3 non-point scores for him if you include Russia. Jeffrey has 3 gone as well, and Tim probably should have. Most normal people wouldn't have been riding at Riola, but his damage limitation, even in this scenario, has been fantastic. And after what happened, to come out of there with just a 1-point deficit to Jeffrey Hurlings, although the one guy you don't want to be behind is Jeffrey Hurlings in a points championship, but under the circumstances, he's still right there. 1 point isn't really worth anything at this moment in time. There's so many rounds left. So he has to be probably very sore, but very relieved probably at how he's been able to limit the damage.
Yeah, absolutely. It has to be. I mean, to get 8th, it wasn't looking likely whatsoever in that second moto. So I think he'll be happy. And yeah, the championship's all to play for. And even though Geiser coming into this did have a nice points gap advantage, I do feel like it probably should have been a wee bit closer. So this has made it closer, which we all probably want as neutrals. We wanted to go down to the wire, and we've got that now. So hopefully everyone is 100% soon, and then may the best man win.
Yeah, as was said before, and we'll reiterate, it's just a shame Caroli had that crash, because even if you give him 20 points on the day, I'm sure he would have got more, but then that's him within 25 points, and it would have been pretty much 5 riders. He could have thrown a blanket over maybe 15 points, ideally, which would have been pretty unbelievable for a World Championship to have 5 guys all have the championship within their own hands, as it would have been. At the minute, it's 4, with Caroli probably back there hoping for a wee bit of bad luck, or, as you mentioned, for him to go on a winning spree. But let's go Jeffrey Hurlings. He has the red plate. He went 1-1, very dominant in the first moto. His lap time in practice was unreal. He made it look really easy. We would like Tim Geiger had previously at the previous round in Turkey. He was going so fast, he almost didn't look fast. He was carrying that much momentum and jumping the bumps, and with his technique, he was flowing so well. It looked like it was actually easier for him, maybe missing bumps that a lot of the other guys were hitting. But then the second moto came, and Jorge Prado got a whole shot. And my goodness, Jorge Prado does not care about who's behind him. Most people, whenever they're and somebody's on you, that's the most pressure. That's almost you kind of want it to be in second, so you can see what the leader's doing, see their strengths and weaknesses, and then hopefully make the pass. But Prado doesn't seem to worry about that. We would like Jonathan Ray in World Superbikes. He likes to get into the lead, control the race from the front. And for 20-25 minutes, he was controlling Jeffrey Hurlings. Every time he went to do a pass, Prado stayed to his line or drifted off towards Jeffrey's line. And there was one time it looked like Hurlings had him. They were coming in pretty much side by side. Prado blocked him, and then Hurlings ended up on the inside, and Prado still waited to jump and doubled out whenever Hurlings had to hit the brakes. And it was pretty close. There wasn't a lot of room there. And Prado was just completely unfazed. And then the pass itself that Hurlings eventually made was probably 1 second away from them both going down, and a sort of helicopter spin banzai crash that would have left Roman Febvre very happy. Luckily, he seemed to pull out just in the nick of time, because he started drifting across. He even admitted to it after the race to block Hurlings, but Hurlings was coming that fast. I'm not sure expected Hurlings to be there and just stay on the gas. Hurlings at this point was just saying, I am sick of being behind you. I'm going to the front. Goodbye. And once Hurlings done that, he did then pull away. But Prado kept that exciting, and every race he gets in the lead, I'm sure the rest of them all just sigh, because they know they're going to have a job trying to pass him.
Yeah, well, let's make things very, very clear. There's no doubt about it that Jeffrey Hurlings is the quickest rider on that track, and that shouldn't surprise anybody. There's a reason he's the best sand rider the world's ever seen. And obviously, when it comes to motocross, we are biased. But the best thing in motorsport, in my opinion, is watching that man ride sand. Absolutely unbelievable the way how he deals with the bumps, how quick he goes through them, and how he seems to process everything. Unbelievable. And I'm not quite sure if I agree with you. Prado was controlling Jeffrey Hurlings, and I think he was more getting in his way and holding him up. But obviously, that's the great thing about that. Yeah, that's obviously the great thing about Prado, though. He doesn't give a crap who's behind him, and he'll make you fight for it. And he made Hurlings fight for it. And my goodness, if they both had it went down, I think it's going to happen at some stage this season. I'm kind of surprised it hasn't already, but the way Prado fights and where he puts the bike, and I think there's going to be a couple of riders left down in the deck at some stage. So there could be plenty of fireworks left yet. And we all know Prado's going to get the whole shot as well. So there's plenty more riders that'll be looking to pass him. But Prado has the speed now at the majority of tracks. It's just the last maybe 5 minutes letting him down, but at that track there, it's going to take something very, very special to beat Jeffrey Hurlings. Yeah,
I think Prado did it. He did all he could. He threw everything at it, and Hurlings still found a way by, even though it was close. In Turkey, Tim Geiger had to pass Prado, and again, that was a pretty close move at one point. So with 12 points in it, the championship's really getting tense now, and there's already been these moments where guys could go down, or guys who'll be getting irritated at Prado or vice versa. They might let that slide early in the championship because they don't want to start any wars. But coming down now, 12 points between the top 4. Tony Caroli hopefully back to full strength by the next Grand Prix in a couple of weeks. He has no time to waste if he still thinks he can be world champion. This could get pretty tasty now.
Exactly. What I would like to say is Roman Febvre really does deserve an round of applause, in my opinion, for that second moto. Rough, deep sand, and for 20 minutes he was right there, and them guys were on the gas. Obviously, Hurlings was quicker than anybody, but for Febvre to be Prado speed, I think is very, very impressive. There's not too many riders in the world that could follow those two around there, so he should take a lot of confidence from that. And there's quite a lot of hard pack coming up. We say it every week, but if Febvre can start to stay on the bike, he's not out of this. I really do feel like Roman Febvre is very underrated. Not too many people get excited and jump up about him and say he's going to win the title, but you really can't discount him. He has the speed, I think. He just needs to minimise the mistakes and he'll be right there.
He's just 4 points back, and it's pretty much changed now because guys are in Febvre, as you alluded to there, they've upped their game in the sand. I mean, guys are at a time maybe would have got 8 not hurt on a deep sand track, or at least sort of 5, 6. And now with a freshly healed or plated collarbone, he's getting 8 in pain. And as you mentioned, Roman Febvre, he won Lommel. He crashed and still won Lommel. He's come back on another brutal sand track, and he's ran the pace with Hurlings and Febvre for the majority of that race until Hurlings really pulled the pin at the end. But even the way Febvre rides the bike, he has that sand rhythm more than he ever has. He looks really comfortable. I've always said as soon as he got on the Kawasaki, he looked really comfortable. But in the sand now, he looks equally at home as he does on hardpack. And it's a bit of a problem for Hurlings and Prado and even Crowley, because their strength was the sand. And now these other two guys have sort of caught up. So now the sand guys have to catch up on the hard pack, and we think credit to Tony Carolla. He's really improved the last 18 months, 2 years on hard pack. In fact, the sand races haven't been going as well as you would probably expect, and his hard pack's been fantastic. So now each track, the differential is very narrow. And coming into Germany, then you have France, then you have Spain, then you have Arco, all perfect for hard pack riders, and there's not too many better than guys are in Febvre.
Exactly, and I really can't wait for Germany to see what's going to happen, because I've went there, well, obviously not last year because I didn't have a GP, but I was there the year before that and the year before that. I've been there twice, I think, and that track is so hard to pass, especially the way they rip it so deep. It makes it look like there's loads of lines, but actually only really one good lines for them then, and it makes it so hard to pass. And we all know who's going to get the whole shot, Jorge Prado, and we all know how hard it is to pass Jorge Prado, so if you want to pass in there, you might need to get very, very naughty.
You think somebody will go down in terms of a harsh pass, not just fall off? Because that would be a bit silly question.
Yeah, it's if it's going to happen, Germany could be the track it happens at. I remember Antonio Crowley, I think 3 or 4 years ago, started in 6th, and that's where he finished. And I think that was the year he was riding really, really well. So it just goes to show a start is crucial around there. And it's quite funny because in the past you would say Febvre struggles with his starts, but actually this year starts have been quite good. We all know Geiger can start, Prado can start, Crowley decent starts, although not as good as they used to be, I would say. It's sort of all on Hurlings. What's his starts going to be like? They were good at Riola, but that makes a pleasant change for his point of view, because usually they're not that good. But if there's a track he needs them to be good at, it's definitely Germany. So it's going to be a fascinating match there.
Yeah, I mean, if you start 5th and everybody's on it, it could be hard even just to get to 3rd. You know, exactly. The starts could be, I think the start has got slightly safer. It used to be a very sweeping right-hander in that kind of a downhill, and it was pretty dodgy. So hopefully it's a bit safer now. But those 5 guys, as you said, they cannot afford to be the 5th guy of that top 5. So it's going to be a kind of watch with your hands over your eyes a wee bit to go into these first corners. And I think Hurlings and Crowley are probably the worst starters of the 5 at the minute. Hurlings can be good starts, and then he'll have a couple of bad and 2 good. And Crowley hasn't too many hole shots that I can think of. He was good at Matterley, Russia, but from then it's been a wee bit hit and miss. He's generally starting 5th on a good start and maybe sort of 7th to 4th, which whenever then that means you have 2 or 3 of the elite guys, championship guys to pass, it makes your life very hard. Yeah,
I would agree with you. Crowley used to be the man with starts, but isn't it funny, as soon as Prado moves into MXGP, Crowley's starts just aren't as good for whatever reason. But you would think even a bad start would be second, even if Prado gets start, but it hasn't happened like that. So I'm not quite sure why. He's probably scratching his head too, because for years he was renowned for his good starts, and ever since the young Spaniard comes up, maybe it's a mental thing, who knows? But definitely haven't been as good since he's moved into MXGP, which is interesting.
Geyser starts have been very good, especially on this new Honda. So maybe the level of competition and starting abilities raised as well. And if Geyser and Prado start 1-2 and Crowley's third, you're thinking Crowley's usually leading. Plus you have, as you mentioned, Fevre, who's generally top 5, and he's now getting whole shots as well. And then you've Hurlings is a bit of a starting wild card. You don't quite know what you're going to get with him. But for Hurlings with Hardpack coming up, looking back now, he had that bit of luck, is maybe evened it out slightly for what happened to him to a certain extent. That's got him back with the championship leaders. But that probably had to happen, because it would have been very difficult for him to go 1-1-1-1 for the next few rounds, I think, with the way the calendar's changed, and it's definitely favouring the Hardpack riders. Yeah,
possibly. I think if there is one guy that's capable of doing 1-1, it is Jeffy Hurlings.
Riskier.
And he showed it. He did show. Yeah, and he's got that raw speed maybe the others don't have whenever he absolutely requires it. But in the past, that's led to hospital visits too, and he maybe doesn't want to push the envelope. So at least now he's in a position. He's got the red plate, and he can take the occasional second or third now, and that's okay, because he can start to look at the bigger picture now. But it definitely is going to be fascinating to see what way this how it all develops and how it forms on the track. There'll be plenty of battling out there anyway, because especially for the guy like somebody like Prado and Crowley, they can't really accept a fifth now or a fourth. They need to be the ones on the attack more. But as we all know, Prado's going to get himself into a lovely position off the start unless something ridiculously bad happens to him. So he doesn't really have to worry about that so much. It's more Crowley that has to be the one that's on the attack.
The other thing, of course, is Tim Geyser is still quite injured. I remember in '94, going back a few years because I'm old.
And the year I was born.
You don't need to say that. Stefan Everts was in a big battle with Greg Albertine, and I think he was maybe leading the championship. He broke his collarbone, missed Finland, and rode, I think it was Budds Creek, within a couple of weeks after, quite similar to Geyser. Now, I'm not sure if he had plated or pinned or what the technology was back then, but I know he was getting laser treatment and stuff around the time. And he came back and he salvaged good points, but he never quite had the same form for the next couple of rounds. So I wonder if that will be the same for Tim Geyser, or with medical advancement, will that heal in and that he'll be more pain-free within that 2-3 week window, because we have a lot of GPs coming up, and if he isn't quite at 100%, even if he's at 90%, will that cost him a few positions? As you say, if you're a couple of percent off, you could be 4th and 5th, and if Hurlings or Fevre's winning, that's 3 to 5 points in moto you're losing, which could be quite costly in the end. So that's another thing just to think ahead to. Geyser probably will be better than he was in Riola, but he might still not be able to go at 100% even in Germany.
It is a good point. It all depends how bad the break was, really, you would think. I remember Jade Payton a couple of years ago, broke his collarbone, had it plated, and he was back riding 10 days, no bother at all. But obviously it wasn't a bad break, so it'll all depend on how he's feeling over the recovery time he has off, and it'll be interesting to see how many times he's on the bike over this 2-week break that he has. But yeah, don't forget though, there's probably still going to be more crashes, and unfortunately, probably if all these 5 last the season, everyone wants to see that. But what I was saying, the chances are that usually somebody always gets wrecked. So even if you have to take the all 4th or 5th, the chances that these 5 end the season, I would say, is low. Hopefully they all do stay fit, because it'll be unbelievable if they do. But you know what this sport's like.
It's very inspiring. Well, we have had.
But here, can we talk about Calvin Flandrin?
Well, I'm getting there. I just want to make the point. Jorge Prado DNF, and we thought he was injured. Then Tim Geyser got injured. Then Crowley, that was very serious, and luckily he only missed 1 round. Hurlings has already been wrecked. And the fascinating thing about this championship, as you mentioned, somebody usually gets wrecked. People have already seen them, and yet they're all still really close together. So
I know, it's unbelievable.
Our championship, but brilliant all at the same time. Now, right, you impatient man, let's get to Calvin Flandrin. Unbelievable ride. he's actually been riding, before we go into today, he's been riding really well the last few rounds. The results haven't quite been there for whatever reason, but the speed has been good on the bike. And finally, at Riola, he put everything together. First moto, it looked like he had third in the bag, but Fevre came on strong. Calvin actually admitted he got a bit tired. He wasn't used to that intensity at the front of the field, but he rode well to get into third. Eventually came home fourth, but you have to be happy with that performance. Second race, he didn't get away with that front three, but still got himself fourth again for, unsurprisingly, fourth overall. But just a brilliant day, brilliant riding. And again, it's important to say he's not on a factory bike. So that's impressive on his level, but also very good for the team as well, to show that they can produce such a competitive bike. But for me, Vlaanderen is a guy that probably needs to be on a factory machine now, because this year he's really stepped up for me.
Do you know what? I feel a bit sorry for him. 4-4 on another day and you get third overall. Kaido Wolf went 4-4 and got a podium. So I feel a bit sorry for him. It's just he had to ride that well whenever he had those freaks in front of him, Hurlings, Prado and Fevre, and then him not having a factory bike. But, 4-4, let's be honest, that's as good as a win for that guy. Unbelievable. Really, really good performance. We do sing his praises quite a lot, and I absolutely agree with you. The Gavin Van Venrooy guys won't like me for saying it, but I think Vlaanderen needs to be on a factory bike as well. He does deserve it. He's riding really well every week. Maybe hasn't had the results all the time, but he's probably having to push quite hard on that bike to run with the factory boys on a regular basis, and starts haven't always been great either. But Riola, really, really good performance, and as he alluded to in his press release, they've got a bit of a problem now because they'll be expecting this every week.
But he was top Yamaha, and the three factory main Yamaha riders were all in the top 10 as well. So it wasn't like it was a disaster for Yamaha this week. And Vlaanderen was the top guy on blue. So he's definitely putting his case forward. If you're the factory Yamaha boys, you're probably not liking the privateer Yamaha finishing ahead of you either.
Exactly. And you know what? A shout out to Brent Van Donek as well, because I feel like he's pretty similar to Vlaanderen, but he can't get starts really. I mean, in both motos in Riola, he had to come from 20th. He was a lap away from finishing 10th, and then he ran out of fuel. In the second moto, he came from 20th to 11th. So it should have been 10-11 for him, coming from 20th both races. I would have liked to see him start in the top 10 to see what he could have done. You have to say the Gavin Van Venrooy guys are doing a very good job this season. It's just the results aren't as good as what the riding has been for those two guys, though, in my opinion.
I think that's good as well for riders that maybe they lose a factory rider trying to work their way up the ranks on non-factory teams, to know that there is teams like the Gavin Van Venrooy outfit there that can offer a competitive bike. That means if you've got yourself riding well, the bike isn't going to be an issue and you're going to be able to show your talent in that class. Absolutely. And who knows, because they've been doing a good job, maybe Yamaha will give them a bit more backing now. That would be pretty good. Give them engines or something like that. That would be very ideal. But who knows on that one. Jeremy Sear, 5th, which I thought was pretty good. We know he's struggling with energy and his health at the minute. And that's on that track with that sand, the depth of sand, those bumps and that heat. 5th overall for me was really good. It was probably classic Jeremy Sear day for maybe a couple of years ago before he took that next level, which I feel he has had before he this season really, where he's had health issues. Just consistent, strong and solid, which at this point I'm sure he'll take given his situation and the field. There was a lot of riders back for Riola as well, so to ride well both motos. Obviously he didn't have the pace of those front three, but I feel that was a very good ride for him under the circumstances. Ben Watson didn't go well for him at all in Turkey. Came back, rode really well. Again, he had that first sort of 10 minutes running at the front, and then he went backwards a wee bit in the first moto till he maybe came to that more normal pace that normal, really good riders can ride at. I think that intensity at the start is hard for especially a rookie to switch into that and be able to last. I think he's shown he can do it for a while, but lasting that is another thing altogether. So 6th overall for him, but I found that interesting. Adam Wheeler had an article on our website about where Ben was going for next year, and the team, I thought he's been overall quite a good year apart from those couple of hard patch tracks in Russia and Turkey, and he's 10th overall in the championship. But they were a wee bit, I thought, maybe felt harsh on him, and maybe that's the kind of naivety in a way of being not seeing what a team manager sees, where they're paying these guys money and they just expect results that almost don't take into account the depth of the class. Now, they said they weren't expecting him to win, but it looks like they want him to do more results like Riola. But where Ben goes next year, I thought he'd actually had a fairly solid season for his rookie season. So there's maybe becoming a wee bit of pressure on Ben the second half of the year to perform.
Yeah, well, the problem is with Ben Watson, ideally a third factory guy, he's doing exactly what's required. 10th overall in the championship as a rookie. I'm not sure you can really ask him to do much better than that. And that getting him in as the third factory guy should be the whole point, that he's not under pressure. You put the other two riders have that pressure, and then he's pressure free to learn for 2022. But obviously Yamaha think a little bit differently to me, and they want him to do better. I think it's hard to ask him to do better. Obviously you expect more in hardpack, that's a given. The slick hardpack tracks, he needs to be better at those type of going. But he's 10th as a rookie. That's good, and they're not going to be signing Prado now. Who unless Vlaanderen maybe? But even Watson's beating Vlaanderen. It's a difficult one. Like I would say I would just keep the same rider lineup at Yamaha. Although I could see maybe Watson at somewhere like Gabon, maybe less pressure would help him. But if I was Yamaha, I would definitely be keeping Watson in one capacity. Like,
because he is an investment. He's learning this year, and he showed enough speed that he has the talent to go. But he obviously has these couple of hard pack tracks where the bottom seems to fall out on his confidence. But aside from that, he's not, to me, a top 10 in your rookie season. If it is 10th as to what it ends, or I think that's quite good. But obviously, when you're in a factory team, you're expected to perform, and Ben has that pressure now.
Yeah, well, the thing is with Watson is I really didn't think he would be performing this good at his rookie season, only because history suggests the more years he has in a class, the more comfortable he gets, and then the results tend to follow. The results tend to get better and better. In EMX 250 and MX2, the first year he didn't set the world on fire, but he kept working at it, kept plugging away, and then, his last couple of years in MX2 were very, very strong. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Watson and Yamaha. Hopefully they do keep him, whether it's on a factory team or not, because I feel like he definitely deserves another year at it at least, because he hasn't had a bad season by any stretch of the imagination. He's been good.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's probably been everything you could probably expect for Watson. As you say, he tends to grow into things. He's not really that sort of guy that comes in and thinks he's better than everyone and has that arrogance that you probably maybe need to be world champion. I feel like he needs to get results to believe in himself, to go to the next step and the next step to finally get there, like we saw in MX2.
Yeah, and he's the best rookie at the moment. I mean, Thomas K.R. Olsen's 12th. I thought TKO would have performed at a higher level than Watson as a rookie, to be very honest. So obviously he's going under the radar a bit. Maybe he's a bit more inconsistent, but for those two to be close, I think speaks volumes for Watson. A pretty good rookie season.
Talking of good rides, Brian Bogers again, pretty impressive, 7th overall. And at one point I was thinking, with Jeffrey Herlings taking the red plate, maybe he'll think the nations aren't worth the risk. And with Brian riding so well, he could probably go there and still win it for Holland.
Yeah, well, it'll depend on Crowley, you would think. Even if Crowley races now, he's not going to be 100%, is he? So you would think that. I think if Italy had 100%, if all the riders were 100%, I think Italy would be slight favourites, only because Rowan van der Moosdijk is just back. And actually, I don't doubt his ability, but just with where he is at the moment, I would be taking Kaido Wolf if I was in charge of picking the Dutch team, just because at the moment he's full of confidence, another podium in MX2. And he'll ride his heart out. There's no doubt about that. If Van der Moosdijk was 100%, you're probably going to pick him. Got a wee bit more experience. And he's probably as good as Kaido Wolf on sand as well when he's 100%. But just where those two are at, I would have picked the Wolf for MX2, to be perfectly honest. I do think Herlings and Kodenhoff will race. And I think now, because Crowley, even if he does race, isn't 100%, I think all the Netherlands have to do is turn up and not have any bad luck. And I think it's theirs, to be perfectly honest.
Well, yeah, you mentioned Kaido Wolf there. For me, he's the obvious choice now. It would actually be surprising if Rowan was picked. It's going to be quite hard to go into that race with just one GP back after a broken wrist to really perform at the level he'll want to, and almost has a responsibility to with the two guys he's paired with to try and win it for Holland. De Wolf we'll come on to that when we'll talk to MX2, but he's absolutely flying at the minute and he's fantastic to watch. And with the nations as it is, it will probably suit him okay because yes, they should win, but the pressure won't be as big probably as it would in a year or two whenever all the other countries are back with their full teams. So it might work out for everyone better if De Wolf is on the team, unless of course Rowan's health-wise is feeling quite good and he thinks in the next couple of days with a bit more bike time and a race under his belt, he can start performing. But again, for Rowan, the starts haven't always been great for him, which is something you need in MX2, this nations. And Kaya's got probably better starts.
Yeah, exactly. Although the one thing I would say is with Glenn and Jeffrey racing, they probably only need one good moto from Rowan. In the ideal world, if they've no bad luck or anything like that and everything goes to plan, one good moto from Rowan probably wins them the event really. And especially as I mentioned, without Hurlings being 100 or without Crowley being 100%, and even Gordonini, hopefully he's okay as well after his wee off. So yeah, even though Kaido Wolf makes more sense, I still think they'll get the job done.
It'll be interesting to see. It's a bit of a funny designation. I was going to talk about it later, but we'll talk about it now since you brought it up randomly in the middle of MXGP. I'm not sure what to think about the nations this year. Usually at the end of the season, you've had all the AMA racing, MXGP racing, British Championship, everybody's free to kind of ride their hearts out for their country. And it's not quite like that this year. We don't have all the best guys there. We don't have all the best countries there. And if we do, they're not at full strength. So while it's still interesting, it certainly doesn't have the allure that the event usually has.
Yeah, well, I'll certainly not be as excited for it as I am in MXGP with half the riders not there in the 450 class anyway. More of the MX2 guys seem to be up for it. But the one thing I would say is I'm quite glad there's a double header at Mantova. And I think if Infront had told the teams that a lot earlier, obviously they probably didn't know themselves because that wasn't the initial plan, obviously. They wanted to run a normal calendar. But with the double header in Mantova, it probably makes more sense for more of the GP riders to do it now. I mean, Jeremy Van Hoorbeek pulled out because he wants to test the beta, the 2022 beta. No better place than going to Mantova to test it, is there? And then you can test it for the GPs that they'll have there as well. So in that aspect of it, I think it's quite good for the riders that do turn up and race. But in terms of the event itself, yeah, it's not going to be great, is it?
Well, I think it's going to be better than we expect going in, hopefully, because with the MX2 and 450s combined, just to see how Tom Vial does in a mixed race, how Liam Everts does at his first Nations, different type of event. There is a few storylines. Obviously, Team Ireland hopefully qualifies straight through into the A race. And for me, dark horses are Great Britain. Was Conrad Muse was going to be quick, I think. Sean Simpson's always solid. And Ben Watson just got sixth overall, and Mantova isn't exactly Russia, so with the sand there, I expect him to be very fast. And with the lack of depth compared to a normal year, that could really help Britain if those three guys get three good starts and anything happens to Holland. You never know for Great Britain. They could be A, on the podium, and B, pushing to stand at the top of it if there's some bad luck for Holland.
I don't know. I don't share your optimism for Team GB, to be honest. I definitely don't see them winning it. Podium, I would say, is possible. Yeah,
that's what I just said.
Yeah, but I still think Italy will be there and standby if something goes wrong to the Netherlands, unless Caroli pulls out. But even Ferrado's riding well at the minute. Gordonini's going to be there in MX2.
A good backup.
Yeah, and even Lapucci, if they don't want Ferrado, Lapucci would be good too. So I still think the Italians are next in line. But in terms of who could get the last step in the podium, yeah, it could certainly well be GB. Trying to even think of the others. I mean, it's usually Belgium are knocking on the door, but geez, I can't see them getting a podium this year. Estonia, don't rule out Estonia. I think they've finished fourth 2 or 3 years in a row. Is that right?
So after disagreeing with me about Britain potentially getting a podium, you're saying the only two countries that will probably beat them is Italy and Holland?
No. I was disagreeing with you that they're going to win it. I think they can get a podium.
They were going to win it. I said if the other Holland, etc., have bad luck, and with Caroli possibly not riding, then Britain might have an outside chance. Yeah.
I thought you meant they were next in line after Holland. Well, no, I agree with you then. I
No,
agree with you
come.
then. They can get a podium. Like, yeah, podium's possible.
Oh, that was strange. Anyone else you're looking out for on
Jeez.
this nations?
Ireland, what's going to happen?
I think if Edmonds and Mira get starts, they can get in directly. Hopefully, if they ride like they've been riding the British Championship. But
I
if
have no idea what
they
to
go to
expect,
the
to be honest.
B final, that can be a bit harder because if one of them goes down or whatever in the first turn, or anything could happen in a B final.
Yeah. What I would say is they're lucky in one respect that Australia and America haven't turned up, so automatically they're up too.
Yeah.
But the problem is all these countries send their B teams. Let's be honest, the B teams are still stronger than Ireland. I mean, Ireland aren't going to beat Belgium unless something ridiculous happens. The only team that they could beat is Spain. They have a chance of beating Spain, who they wouldn't normally get near if Prado's turning up for them and Fernandez. They could beat Spain. That's the only regular top team that they have a chance of beating, I would say.
In theory, it should be easier to qualify, and they've qualified before with a tougher competition.
Yeah. But then our team isn't as strong either.
No, but the two 450 guys are strong still. So in terms of qualifying, you only need two good races. A lot of city is two. You can drop your worst one.
Yeah, true.
So to me, if they get the starts and ride like they can, like they are in the British Championship, they should qualify. I think. Hopefully,
I think it'll be touch and go, but I think if they get through, they need to get straight through. If it goes to a B final, it could be good night Vienna, like.
Yeah, I don't think they'll be going to Vienna. Stick them onto it, but yeah, I think you're right. I think B final it's a wee bit more hit and miss. You sort of need everything to go your way in it, and there's so much pressure on that race. You can't really make a mistake. Whereas at least the Saturday, they know they've a second chance whenever it comes to the B final. So hopefully they'll be relaxed. And Edmonds, obviously, he knows the drill. He's been there a lot of times. He's saved Ireland a few times as well with some brilliant rides. So hopefully he'll be in that mood again. And Jason can show in Europe the pace he has in the UK and Ireland. So we'll keep our fingers crossed for that. But anyway, we'll go back to MXGP after veering off there for no reason in particular. Paul's Jonas was actually Bram Boger's fault probably, because then I mentioned it. But anyway, Jeffrey Hurley. So Boger's actually beat Paul's Jonas, which hasn't happened a lot this year, not because Bran hasn't been riding well, but because Paul's been riding fantastic. So I'm sure he'll go home happy with that one for Bran. Paul's Jonas 9th, 8th overall. Probably not the results in terms of speed or starts that he was hoping for, but still a top 10 and ahead of Glenn Coldenhoff, who he'll be looking for better. Things just don't look like they're flowing for him at the minute.
Yeah, before the weekend, if there was one guy that I thought was going to throw a cat amongst the pigeons, it would have been Paul Jonas. But for his standards this season, that was very, very average and below par, you would probably say. It ended up being Vlaanderen that threw the cat amongst the pigeons, so I got that one wrong. But PJ will be looking to bounce back in Germany now in a couple of weeks' time. He had a good moto there, the last GP there. I think he got maybe second in a moto, or he was running for second in ages, so it's a track he likes. So he'll be looking to bounce back there, and the week off might do him the world of good after the crash in Turkey. Coldenhoff, again, in deep sand like that, that's his cup of tea, and he just didn't perform. 10-10, disappointing. I'm sure he'll be very disappointed with it, but he's the Motocross the Nations king, so don't be surprised if he goes 1-1 a Mantova now.
Yeah, that could work out well. It could be the wee spark he needs to get that confidence and get that momentum back for the World Championship. So hopefully Glenn can rediscover his Motocross of Nations magic and start getting that pace back in World Championship. Because for him, he's bound to feel the pressure at this point with the signing and the money and factory team, head guy at factory Yamaha basically supposed to push the other guys for the title. I presume they sort of thought he would be doing what Febvre's doing, but it hasn't happened. And it looks like they're a wee bit lost at the minute in terms of confidence and finding any momentum. So this Des Nations could maybe be the wee spark he needs. And Thomas Kjær-Olsen, you talked about him a wee bit before in comparison with Ben. 10th overall, not bad, but I feel that's the kind of way it's been going for Olsen. Good ride here, an average ride there, and it's always been okay. There hasn't been a lot of look at the speed of TKO in this moto. I felt it was very similar in Riola. He's riding decent, but there's none of this, like even Ben had in the first moto, getting the start, running up front, showing pace for 10 or 15 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. I think with TKO, I think it's because how highly we rate him is probably why we're saying things like this. You know, in MX2, this is a guy, I remember him running with Dylan Ferrandis. I remember him running with Paul Jonas. He was a top guy, and I always thought he was going to be better on the 450. To be perfectly honest, I think it's maybe just a mental thing, and he's the sort of guy that needs a year in a class sometimes to work it all out. So I still wouldn't, rule out a bright future for him. And he is going very under their radar this year. Like, even, I mean, 8th in MXGP is still very good, but the problem is it was an 8 and a 13. Even if he could start getting 8-8, that would be a step in the right direction, let's say. But yeah, he'll be looking to step it up in the second half of the season.
Sean Simpson back in the Grand Prix, probably not that easy to just fit back into there, but that's sort of his going. And 11th overall, he probably wanted the top 10, but I think as essentially a warm-up for Mantova, he has to be pleased with that. The guy that really impressed me was Benoit Patrell. I saw he was quite far off the pace. Was it Turkey? He came back. He
was and then completely.
In that sand where you wouldn't expect Benoit to be that fast, he was up and around top 10 for a large portion of that first moto. Really nice to see him back. I always thought he'd be a good 450 rider on a factory level, and it just never went for him as soon as he's got onto the big belt, because people forget he was a really, really good podium race winner in MX2, and it's never really happened for him in MXGP. But to do that in that sand was pretty impressive, and I believe he's had long COVID as well, so that the health hasn't been there, which no doubt accounts for the slow results coming back. But hopefully now he might start to feel comfortable and start to show what he can do.
Yeah, since he's went up the MXGP, it's just been one thing after another for Benoit Patrell, and for him to see actually that he has still got that speed must be very pleasing for him to see, because it's been so long since we've seen him do it in MXGP, and for him to have that top 10 speed after being out for so long, and while these guys are racing every week, definitely the positive for him is the speed's still there. Hopefully he can just get the head down now, knuckle down, work hard, and things can go in the right direction.
And I believe he's racing Motocross of Nations now for France.
Yeah, he is indeed, yeah.
So that was looking like...
I completely forgot about France, yeah. They were one of the teams I was trying to think of earlier, and I completely forgot about them, even though they've won it like 6 times in a row.
I think Patrell is possibly the reason why, because you were looking at his results in Turkey, and you're like, come out of it. And now, suddenly, he had top 10 speed in sand, and Mantova sand, but not, there's a hard base with a lot of jumps. With him and Vial and Borswamy, you don't quite know what you're going to get with Borswamy, but whenever it works, he's fast. Yeah. So to me, they're going to be very hit and miss. The two 450 guys have the potential to be fast, and they have the potential to have complete disasters. So Tom Vial might actually have to use both his two MX2 scores if the 450 guys can't get it going. But at least with Patrell and that performance, for confidence, for the whole morale and hopes of Team France, and with the speed of Tom Vial, I'm adding them to my potential podium list now, along with GB.
I'm going to predict 5th.
Oh.
Completely random, but yeah, 5th. The problem is, whenever Barami was picked for them, he was riding well, and you actually could have seen him perform well. But this last couple of GPs just haven't been good at all for him for whatever reason. I'm not sure, and I'm not sure how getting on a 450 with a low confidence on a bike that he's used to is going to work out for him. So I'm not sure how he's going to perform. Pat Urell can do one good moto. Has he got the fitness to do 2? That's a big question. Tom Vial, it's all on you, mate.
I think that's it. Vial is the team leader in MX2 for this team, but somehow yet again went to Motocross of Nations. So we'll row back from that, stick with Tom Vial and talk about MX2. Another great day for him, but after that first moto, I don't know if there's too many not called Tom Vial and that didn't work for Red Bull KTM or isn't called Frederick that thought he was going to win that second moto, because he looked exhausted. And I thought if Gertz gets a start, if Renault gets away, he looked like Renault had more in the tank. And next thing, Vial gets to start second moto and just runs away with it. Really, really impressive again. This guy, I still don't think gets the credit he deserves. We see the credit Jet Lawrence gets, and for me, Vial is on that level with Jet Lawrence and has more experience, probably as well on a greater variety of tracks during the World Championship. he's a special wee rider.
Yeah, and do you know what it is? Because we watch Riola every year, we assume all these GP riders have rode there before. But it surprised me when he said he had never raced there before. First time racing there, and he goes 1-1, not bad at all. And at that type of track that was rough and gnarly, he took to it like a duck to water really. And obviously in that first moto, he fought to get that win because Renault was charging at the end. But yeah, very, very impressive. 1-1 and another GP victory to his name. He could have plenty more of those. Because obviously not winning the title this year means he's most likely to stay in MX2 next year, and then he'll have another year after that if he wants it as well. So he could rack up the GP wins quite quickly.
Yeah, he's just class for me. He's so precise. You see Jet Lawrence the way Jet stands. I think it's a wee bit more obvious because he's a bit taller. But Tom pretty much rides very similar, just a shorter version. He's so precise, and the big thing about him is he's really mentally strong. Renault was coming in quick at the end of that race, and that track was pretty easy to make a mistake on, and he didn't make a mistake, at least one not big enough to lose the race. To come back knowing you're exhausted and you got caught by the World Championship leader, to go then out and essentially dominate the second moto, really, really impressive. And after everything that's happened to him this year with the injury that wasn't his fault, I feel it's the mental strength. You just can't question Tom Vial. In contrast to Jago Gertz, he has the speed. He should be on the same level as Tom Vial for me in raw talent, but he just keeps making mistakes. You saw his talent in qualifying, an unbelievable lap, and then both motos he just couldn't get to the front when he needed to be there at the start of the race. Caught behind Kaido Wolf in the first one, crashed at the start of the second one, crashed at the start of the first one, and he didn't even make the podium, which you wouldn't have believed once qualifying was over and you saw the speed he had.
Yeah, exactly. You've hit the nail on the head there. The thing is with Gertz, he rode well again, but it's just not his year, is it? Came into the season with an ankle injury.
Be mental.
Took him ages to recover from that. Then it's an injury. He gets an ankle injury, that can happen in this sport. And then he gets arm pump issues. He's never had that ever in his career. And then he has to get arm pump surgery. It's just, when it's not your year, it's not your year. And he's third in the championship, 78 points off. So it's not all that bad. A lot of riders dream of being top 5 in the world. He's still third, and for his standards, he's having a disaster of a year. But hopefully he can end it on a strong note and then go into 2022 and chase this World Championship title that he has the talent to win. He's got the speed to win. It's just whether he can minimise these wee mistakes and be stronger mentally, like you said, to actually bring home a title that we all know he can do is going to be what it comes down to. But in terms of this year, with everything that's happened, I don't think there's much else he could have done to get back into this championship chase, to be honest.
I totally disagree. We've seen Tom Vial with his injury. He's come back, he's winning. To me, the difference between Tom Vial...
But he's not going to win the title either.
The difference, that's because he's missed so many races. The difference between Tom Vial and Jago Gertz is mental. I don't think there's a big talent difference. Jago, we saw last year at the end of the year, he was making these wee crashes, and he stayed in it really well at the start of the year. But once he got the momentum and you thought, here comes Jago Gertz, this arm pump, more crashes, more mistakes, a bad start. There's always something. He can't put the puzzle together yet. And it's not a talent thing. It's not an effort thing. In fact, he might actually be trying too hard. It's hard to know, but something mentally is not there that allows him to get the start and ride mostly mistake-free. Everyone's going to make a mistake, but Tom Vial has had a big injury, missed races, and come back and is winning. And Jago's still making these mistakes, even when he was should have been the fastest guy. There's the small pace, but it's a very important pace for Jago if he wants to be world champion, because he has everything else to do it.
I agree with you. He is mentally is his issues, but just in terms of what he's gone through this year, I just don't think, that ankle injury was worse than what was thought. Like he shouldn't really race the first round, but he done it the Trans Salvage Championship. And then obviously after Russia, he had a good time off, but this ankle still wasn't great. And then as the ankle gets good, the arm pump one for me is the biggest thing. Like, you can't really plan for that as a rider because he's never experienced anything like that in his career, really. Gets arm pump issues, then he needs to go for surgery. That wipes Turkey out pretty much. And he's probably still not 100% because he hasn't been able to train. Probably only a week before Riola, he's been able to train properly like he'd like. Obviously, the crash, that's on him. He had the speed to win the second moto, but got caught behind the Wolf too long. It was the starts that let him down at Riola. But in terms of actually winning the championship this year, just with everything that's happened, I think it was just against him from the word go, really. And it's just not going to happen this year. Hopefully next year he can not have injuries. He can not have the arm pump issues, and then we'll see what he can do. Last year, it was the crashes that let him down. He had the speed and everything else sorted. And even with the bad starts, he still had the speed probably to win the title, but he just crashed too much last year. So that was his problem. So it will be interesting going into 2022. I feel like he's under a lot of pressure next year to get this title because there's a lot of young kids coming.
Well, each year is his window, and it's his window narrowing, especially with the age rule. And he's had two, and this year Tom Vial got hurt, and now his teammate has put all the pieces together before Jago. And yes, injuries and all these other things have contributed to that. But Maxime Renault, mentally, he's right there so far anyway. You can't say it's definitely going to be like that. But from what we're seeing, he's brave enough with a points lead to try and stay with Vial and run him down. He looks like he always sees the big picture. He seems to have the mental fortitude that Jago Gertz is still searching for. Maybe that's because Renault's been through so many bad times that he's built up a resilience. But this year, if you'd have said Vial's getting hurt, you'd have probably put a lot of money on Jago being the guy leading, not Renault. And now Jago's third and it's Renault leading, and you just have to put your hands together for Maxime Renault. He's having a fantastic season. That deep sand to almost win that race and catch Tom Vial. Hard pack, he's obviously great at that anyway. And he's doing the opposite to Gertz. When he's a bad day, it's not that bad. And when he's a good day, he's maximising it. Whereas Gertz, this should have been his good day, and it just didn't happen for him.
Yeah, Maxime Renault hasn't really got a weakness at the minute. In that first moto, he never even had to chase Vial down, but it shows how much he wants to win this year. And he's probably not really thinking about the championship picture when you go after a rider like that you don't need to. That's just his will to win, really. And yeah, you know what? Gertz should actually look at Renault. Renault for two full years was on the sofa doing nothing. And actually, not just Gertz, a lot of riders that look at Renault, he's been through a lot. And he's came out on top, and he's on the brink of a world title now. There needs to be something seriously, drastically wrong. Something go wrong for him to throw this title away, really. 71 points. Unless he gets a massive injury, it's going to take something very, very special for him to be caught. And for full credit to him, he deserves it. He's been fantastic this year. You talk about Tom Vial being underrated, but Maxime Renault is another one that's underrated, in my opinion.
He's really good, and he's really shown it this year on every box that you need ticked. For me, the champion rises under the pressure, and Renault's doing that. And Jago, maybe the confidence is down because of the injury, and then he's playing catch up, and then he's under pressure. And does that even contribute to the arm pump? It's hard to know, but I love watching Jago ride. He rides so nicely, so perfectly. Everyone knows, and he knows, more importantly, that he has the talent to be world champion. And it's frustrating to see these wee mistakes, because I want to see him battling Vial and battling Renault. And for me, Kaido Wolf's going to be a guy they're all going to have to battle with probably next year on an even more regular level. Jago should be up there challenging for this world title every year, no matter who's in this class. It's Jet Lawrence, Tom Vial, Kaido Wolf. Jago has elite level talent. I just want to see him put it all together.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting. Hopefully next year, going into the season, he won't have any issues and we can see what he can do from the get-go. But this year's just been a domino effect, really, of things happening that goes against you, and it's very, very difficult. But for him let's be honest, he's having a crap season and he's still third in the world, so it's not all that bad. But for him now, it's just a matter of ending this season on a high note, get a few wins together, and then it's all about 2022. It should be interesting. But Kaido Wolf, absolutely. What a talent that kid is.
He's unbelievable.
I rated him very, very highly, but I wasn't sure if he would be a regular podium guy. But the way he's going at the minute, especially in sand, he's turning sort of into one. 7th in the championship as a rookie. Obviously, he's not best rookie or anything like that, but when you think that this kid was racing in 85 3 seasons ago, it's the development and progress he's made is pretty unbelievable.
And that second moto, he crashed. It wasn't his fault. He was in the air and Beniston was down, and he was holding Gertz off. I would have really liked to see Kai get the start to see what he could have done with Vial and Renault, because I think it was in his head just to go flat out, laugh as long as he could in the heat and try and win a moto. But he was having to come from the back and fight tooth and nail on a track that didn't look too easy to pass. But he made some moves. And once again, really exciting to watch. For me, still like an elastic band. He just bends around corners and bends his body over jumps to get the bike to do what he wants. Gertz, as I just mentioned, he's very neutral on the bike, very perfect in terms of technique, and the Wolf's just using all this energy, moving about all over the place. But really exciting to watch, and you can see him, he's almost rides with his heart in his sleeve.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like I watched him on the 85s and even the 125s, and he actually had more of a style, maybe like a Gertz, but I feel like this last few years he's maybe changing his style. Maybe he feels you need to attack more in the 250, but I definitely feel like something's changed there. And he does. He kind of reminds me of a Lawrence now, more of a Hunter Lawrence the way he rides now. Just heart in his sleeve, and he pushes. You can see the effort he goes into it, but I feel like that always hasn't been his style. But it's definitely maybe something that's changed. So it's very exciting to watch anyway. And he's got a good technique at the same time. It's not like he's just a pin at the win it guy. He's got a good, and if you can ride deep sand with that speed, you're doing something right.
Well, some of the corners, he was just getting them. It looked absolutely perfect. He was turning inside people and then just rolling the back wheel through into the bump and jumping out over or missing the bump. And at times it looked like he'd got it wrong, but he was just so fast. He was able to correct it and almost turn it into an advantage. So his skill level is unbelievably high. And to be able to race with those guys with no intimidation, and I'm sure he was coming into this weekend thinking he could win a race and get the podium. And he got on the podium. He didn't really get a chance to win the race, but from qualifying, he was right there. And for his mentality to be like that already, is he still 16? Has he turned 17 yet? It's
17 next week, I think.
That's it. He's 16 on the podium again. Very, very special wee rider.
Absolutely, and it's good to see it. I have to say, whenever I seen him riding 85 the first time in the Netherlands, I was just like, this kid's special. Sometimes you think that about kids and you do get it wrong, but Kaido Wolf's definitely going the right direction, and he's got a very bright future ahead of him if he can stay injury free and avoid anything big in the injury department.
Yeah, this winter will be big for him as well because he's probably just going to get even faster on every level next year. But Isaac Gifton, really happy for him. Top 5 overall. Probably more what we expected for him this year. It's been a tough year, but it's nice to see him stick at it and get his rewards.
At last. A bit like Gertz, he came into the season not in with injuries and was riding in pain and things like that. And it takes its toll sometimes, but at long last, that's much more like it. 6-6 for 5th overall. Something to build on now, I would say. I felt like he was my wild card coming into the season, but then, it all went wrong before the first round and you're playing catch up then. But hopefully he's on the right way now and he can be a consistent, top 10 guy and knocking on the top 5 occasionally too.
Yeah, Thibaut Benasson, 6th overall. That crash hurt him a bit, but I thought he was actually riding really well for the Sam. The French kid seems to be ticking every box in terms of all the conditions now, and really, really, really strong performance.
Yep, very good. So sometimes even when he does go under I feel like Riola, he rode really well, but he sort of went under the radar a wee bit. But when he does that, he's still getting top 8 results. So he's very, very consistent, and that's probably why he's 4th in the championship. When he's good, he's very, very good. And when he's off just a little bit, he's still getting top 6 and top 7 overall. So he's going to be the complete package once he can consistently be a top 5 guy.
Yeah, he's, again, like the Wolf, I think he's going to make a big step over the winter. He's already kind of knocking on the door every week of podiums. So that extra winter, that experience of this season on that bike, which is a very good bike, he's going to be forced to be reckoned with, I think, next year. But also sticking with the rookies, Matteo Guadagnini, he really, really impressed me. I know he had that DNF with the mechanical in the second moto, but the first moto he was riding really, really well. Ended up 3rd, but he was 2nd for a while, ahead of Renault. And his sand, what I said before, his sand was kind of the weakness in the early rounds, but in Riola, there was no weakness. He was riding really well. Second moto, he probably got a bit too keen there, trying to go for Vial. But you have to applaud the ambition there and the lack of intimidation. He was going for the win and he wasn't afraid. And he showed enough pace in the first moto that it was possible to go out and lead in that deep sand. So although in the championship picture, it's been a tough day with the mechanical coming back in race 2, in terms of riding, this was probably his best sand GP, and it sort of shows that he's the potential to learn this sand and be a front runner on it every week.
Yeah, Guadagnini, I do feel like is actually a good sand rider. maybe not elite, maybe not, a Gertrude or Wolf, but, he can be a top 5 guy. But something always just seems to go wrong this year in the sand races for whatever reason. Even though he rode really well at Riola, the Sakamoto DNF means he was 11th overall, and it doesn't actually look that great. But similar to some of the other sand GPs, the riding was better than the result. So, and especially the first moto, a third, was very, very good. So he can be happy with that. And he's still second in the championship as a rookie. So don't think he would have expected that coming into the season. So whatever he's doing, continue doing the same things.
Jade Payton 7th overall, solid day for the Australian. He probably wants more podiums, but still not too bad for him. Ron van der Moosdijk, 8th overall. For me, that's pretty good, coming off a wrist injury that isn't always easy to recover from, with getting the movement back in your wrist and things. And especially that track, I know he is Dutch, but with that heat for a first race back, it wasn't the easiest place to come back to. He's probably fairly happy with that, but again, as we mentioned with the nations, is he quite ready to go to there, especially with a team that are expecting to win? I'm not sure. It might be expecting a wee bit too much of him. Obviously, if he was on his A game and on form, he'd be the guy you would expect him to go, because you would expect him to be on the podium at this sort of race. But Van der Moosdijk overall probably pretty satisfied with his day, do you think?
Yeah, well, coming back, you never know how you're going to perform, so you just have to take whatever you get and then build on it. Building blocks, But yeah, top 10's fine, really. The Sakamoto, more so, 7th, and he's probably a long way from his best. So I think you have to be happy with that and build on it and see how it goes. Obviously, we've got some hard pack after the nation, so it'll be interesting to see how he performs there.
And Conrad Muse, 9th overall, 2 strong rides for him. Into the top 10. He hasn't done GPs in a while. He's been racing the British Championship, which he won. So it's nice to see him back there, back into the top 10. And this is where Muse, for me, should be regularly. And straight back there, I know he does love the sand, but to just turn up back into that GP level and the intensity, I feel that was a good day for him.
Yeah, good day, especially at the start of the season in the GPs. You were pulling your hair out going, what's this guy doing? So definitely a good day, considering he hasn't raced GP so long. But because it's Conrad Muse, you always want that wee bit better. I think he can get closer to the top 5 for sure. Has the speed, has the talent. Just a matter of when it's all going to click for him at GP level.
And Wilson Todd, again, a decent day for him, 10th overall. He's just riding really well everywhere at the minute. The start seemed good. That Dixon Yamaha seems pretty quick right now. And
Dixon Yamaha? Well, back 5 years ago
I've went a bit mad. I was
a bit mad. Are you feeling all right?
I'm thinking Zach Osborne and Dean Ferris years.
Yeah,
those rocket ships. That's why it was the speed. But no, this Kawasaki Yamaha Dixon Blanket thing is going very, very fast, and Todd's riding very, very well. So I think Steve will be pretty happy as long as it's still a Kawasaki Wilson's on.
Yeah, especially the first moto, very, very good. 7th running with those boys. He's getting better every week, racing in this class and riding with these riders. It's pretty clear to see now. And the bike seems to be very competitive and maybe more reliable than it has been in the past. So whatever Dixon's doing, he's doing a good job this year. I think he had a crash. Yeah, he did. He had a crash in the second moto. And then I think Hoffer got him on the last lap because as Vial was lapping him, I'm not sure if Hoffer used that as an advantage or he just legitimately passed him. But either or, still a decent day for Wilson Todd going 10th overall around that track.
Ronnie Hoffer, that crash was the killer for him in that second moto, but first moto he was riding really well. And then Liam Everts, I thought that was a really impressive GP debut, 15 years after Stefan raced his last Grand Prix, 13th overall for Liam. He said he got a bit nervous in the first one. I don't think he felt he rode to his complete potential, but he still got 16th. And then a very, very good 11th place in the second moto on the rougher track after having done all the pressure and all the stress of qualifying in that first moto. He must have got the nerves out of him and was able to show his real potential there. Really good for Liam Everts, especially in that heat. It couldn't have been easy. That added to everything that was going on with the name of an Everts first Grand Prix a week before Disney Nations. He's a lot going on at the minute and he performed really well.
First of all, just on Rene Hoffer, I was getting very, very excited for him in the first moto. I mean, third in the sand, trucking, and he looked to be playing with the bumps, looked very comfortable. I was thinking this could be the best race of his career so far, just because it's in sand, and then he bins it. So, typical me. My fault, sorry. But I feel like he can be happy with his riding. The results certainly don't reflect of how quick he was. He probably could have been 5th overall this weekend, so the speed was good. On Liam, he was about where I expected to be, so I wouldn't say it was an unbelievable debut, but it was solid and very good, and I'm sure he'll be glad to get it out of the way. And in the future GPs he races, he'll know what to expect now, and he knows where he is. So he'll look to build on that and progress and get into that top 10.
Well, I can't forget about this guy, Bastien Baudam. He was really, really good. Brilliant speed. He's done this before at a few races this season, but this was maybe his best level in terms of consistent speed at the front he's shown. 15th overall in no way reflects how well he was riding.
Yeah, Bastien Baudam, that doesn't surprise me at all when he does that, to be honest. It wasn't that long ago he was beating Benny Stunt, and then injuries and stuff affected him. Obviously, he hasn't got a factory bike now, so you maybe need to lower the expectations a little bit. But I feel like he needs to believe in himself a little bit more. In terms of talent, he has quite a lot of it, and there's no reason why he can't be a consistent top 10 guy. I feel like in that second moto, once a few guys started to pass him, he's probably not used to the intensity, and that's part of the reason. But I feel like he got all flustered, and you just need to focus on yourself and focus on hitting your marks and moving forward. And I believe he certainly has what it takes to be a consistent top 10 guy.
Simon Langenfelder was fast in practice, decent in the first race. Did he have a crash on that one maybe? And then he had that incident in the second moto that ruled him out. It looked like he hurt his shoulder a bit. But 16th overall, a bit like Bastien Baudam, it doesn't really reflect how well he was riding all day.
Yeah, he started the season really, really well, on fire actually. And I'm not sure I don't think it's his riding, but the last 3 or 4 GPs, just bad luck or just things happening that you can't really plan for has been happening. And it's a bit of a shame because it's starting to affect his championship standing, but because he certainly should be comfortably in the top 10. So hopefully he can have a couple of good GPs and rebound, because the speed's definitely better than what the results are showing at the moment.
And a shout out to Joel Ritchie as well. Points in the second moto. I thought he's maybe starting to get up there. The bits you were seeing, he looks like he's riding a pretty intense pace, pretty intense laps at the minute, and maybe he's slowly starting to get to grips with this MX2 World Championship. Yeah,
well, this is it. Racing MX2 every week, racing different competition, and racing these rough tracks. It's going to make you a better rider, and it might take a while before that happens, but eventually you will see the progress. And for him to get his first points to the board, be very happy about it. P19, very good. And yeah, he looks like he's riding well at the moment, so hopefully he can just build on this for the rest of the season.
And a bit of a bright point in a frustrating day for the Team 114 Motorsport with Ruben Fernandez. Looked like he dislocated that shoulder in the first moto. First turn crash, and no points then for the rest of the day. Couldn't continue, so pretty big blow for him.
Yeah, very big blow after such a good start to the season. And his riding's still good, but these things can happen in this sport. Very unfortunate, but at least he's not riding the Motocross the Nations, so he doesn't have to worry too much about being ready for this weekend. But he can get going again in Germany at a track that should suit him well, actually. He's very good in those type of tracks.
Right, anyone else caught your eye before we wrap this up?
Yes, Factory TM back racing in MX2 GP. Emilio Scatteri racing his debut in MX2. Race 2, finished P17. Good, very good for a debut and for a guy that hasn't got Everts-like talent. And also Kevin Bruman really impressed me. P16 in race 2. Very, very good.
Yeah, it's good for him. Right, that's it. Nothing else you want to add, Andy?
Well, just a quick one on the EMX kids. It was unreal to see those riding at that rough track. Well done, Lucas Leoch, who is Iger Leoch's son, not to be confused with Tana. There's so many Leochs flying about. It's easily done. And then obviously the 85 winner, Marek from Czech Republic as well, who was very good. And a shout out to Lottie van Drunen. What a future she has.
That was a heartbreak, that first moto. She led the whole way, dealt with the pressure, then dealt with the pressure again, and then a back marker just held her up those last couple of turns, and she lost the win. Just devastating for her, because that would have been brilliant for her and brilliant for women's motocross. She's a special talent.
Absolutely, and that wee kid needs to know when to move over, flip's sake. Back markers, you just love them, don't you? At least he's young and has plenty of time to learn.
Yeah, well, if he's there, he's fast in his own right. But she just rode fantastic that first moto, and even the second moto to make sure she got on the podium to come back from that. I'm sure she was pretty angry and frustrated. Then didn't get not a bad start, but not a whole shot like the first moto. So to come back and maintain your composure on that track that was actually pretty rough for just having 65s and 85s on it. So really well done for her. And as Lucas Leok, it looks like there's a few more Leoks coming. I saw Tannel's kids riding the MX 85 as well. So there's another generation of them on the way.
Yep, and then a little Bervolts as well, and a mean little. He's tiny, isn't he, on the 85? So he's probably got another year or two left in it, and probably not be long until he's winning races either.
And the Hungarian rider, he was a 65, Katona. He'd a bad.
Yes, there was two Hungarians.
Went down. He was really fast, he really impressing, but his results do not show the speed he had. He was
the junior world champion.
Yeah.
And then there was another Hungary guy that rides for Scharholz in the 85s. He came from last to fifth in the first 85 moto. Noel somebody, can't remember his surname, apologies. And then in the second moto, I'm not sure what happened, but he has a lot of speed as well.
And the 85 champion Marek, he won the Worlds as well.
Yeah, so and he won.
Perfect
he reminds me of a Randy Hoffer type guy. You know, he's just been winning his whole life basically. So look out for him in the future.
Rezulus Latvia, he won the second moto. He was actually looking like he was maybe going to pass Lottie in the first one. And then another Latvian, Ozolins, probably not saying that very well.
Yes.
Fourth.
Yep.
Latvia are really starting to produce a lot of good riders.
Yeah, Rez Lewis, his brother actually is currently an EMX 125 rider, so that's a talented household there.
Family.
They've got, and like you said, they're all Latvian, so I think the Just brothers have an academy, so they're helping the sport there and helping coach these kids, and it's starting to show because they're starting to break through now.
Yeah, there's a lot of talent coming through, and it's good to see. Obviously, it's sand, so that can maybe sweat slightly for the sand specialists. But those 65 kids, they were absolutely trucking around that track, deep sand, little wheels, and it didn't really seem to matter. They were just on the gas, so that was really, really good to watch, actually, to see the future generations coming through. Of course, Hunter or Jet Lawrence was one of those kids in 85. It feels like only 4 years ago. Now he's winning an AMA, very quick transition for him, and a lot of the other guys, the same Van de Moosdijk and all those ones. Harrop, Gertz even doesn't seem too long ago he was on an 85. So these guys will come through quicker than we probably expect at the minute. It seems quite a long way away, but it's only 2 or 3 years depending on their progression and size probably and height.
Exactly. Those 85 kids, the majority of them will probably be racing the MX 125 next year. If you have a great season in it, you can be somebody like Lackenfeller. He went straight up to MX2. So, you know, potentially they could be racing the World Championship in 2 years' time.
Exactly. So it's good to, if anyone hasn't seen it, even watch the highlights or take a look at the results and
that's great.
Look out for some of those names. Right, Ollie, that's it. That's all we have to say this time. Yeah. Motocross of Nations next week. We'll do a podcast for that and look back at that. Going to be a bit of a different one, but hopefully there'll be some interesting storylines and some good racing still at that event. Team race, so there should be definitely something interesting to talk about. Will Can Britain get the podium? Can anyone beat Holland? How will Liam Everts do? Can Ireland qualify? Let's keep our fingers crossed on that one. And we'll speak to you then, Andy. Thank you.
All the best. Thanks, guys.